The sanctity of the resting place demands an unbreakable vow. Standing between the dead and all harm is Anubis, fulfilling his eternal duty and legacy of care against the darkest shadows.
Welcome back. Today we're sort of pushing past the glittering gold, the famous mask, and really digging into something else from Tutankhamun's tomb, one of his most powerful guardians.
Absolutely. Picture it. November 1922. Howard Carter breaks through into this almost perfectly preserved world. And yes, everyone thinks of the mask, the sarcophagus. But tucked away in the treasury room, behind the sort of open doorway, there was this silent, very sleek figure waiting.
Yeah, let's set aside the chariots, the jewels, for just a moment.
Yeah.
Because standing there facing west, which, is the direction of the afterlife for the Egyptians, was this imposing black shape, the Anubis shrine.
And it wasn't just decorative. This object, its official number is JE61444. It had a job to do, a very practical protective role.
Okay.
It was positioned right in front of the king's canopic shrine, the container for his internal organs, like a first line of spiritual defense.
So our mission, really, for this deep dive is to get into the skin of this iconic shape. We want to go beyond just, it's a jackal god, and trace who Anubis really was.
Yeah.
And use him to unlock this really profound ancient Egyptian idea of religious guidance.
Yeah.
What did that actually mean to them?
Exactly. We've pulled together material on the artifact itself, the mythology surrounding Anubis, and evidence from texts spanning centuries, pyramid texts, coffin texts, the Book of the Dead, all to understand why this idea of a divine guide was just so critical in their worldview.
Okay, so let's unpack the artifact itself first, this Anubis shrine. What is it about its physical presence, its construction, that just screams authority?
Well, it's the whole visual package, isn't it? You have this powerful, recumbent skull figure, beautifully carved from wood, and it's sitting on top of this chest, this base that Carter actually called a pylon. Like those huge temple gateways.
So suggesting a threshold, like you're passing through something.
Precisely. And the materials themselves tell you how important it was. We're talking gold leaf on the details, ears, collar, eyebrows. The eyes are inlaid calcite and obsidian, giving it this unnervingly watchful look. And the claws are silver. That's a serious investment.
Yeah, that's not just any old statue. That investment speaks volumes about its job.
It really does. But maybe the most striking thing, the most critical detail, is a color. Anubis isn't reddish-brown like a real desert jackal. He's black. A deep, lustrous black.
Right. And as we know from other contexts, that black isn't about death or evil in the way we might think of it today.
Not at all, no. It's deeply connected to regeneration. Think about the fertile black silt the Nile left after the flood, the source of all life in Egypt. And it also symbolizes the protected, preserved state of the embalmed body. Black was the color of potential resurrection, of safety.
And the base, the shrine part itself, is covered in symbols too, isn't it? Like a kind of visual instruction manual.
It really is. You've got jed pillars carved on it, that classic symbol of stability, endurance, strongly linked to Osiris. And also the Tiat knot, sometimes called the Isis knot, which is a symbol of life.
So Osiris and Isis, stability and life, built right into the Guardian's platform, and the god himself is named in inscriptions.
Yes, in his key roles. He's called Imut, which means he who is in his wrappings, pointing directly to his role as the master embalmer. And also Kenti Senecher, the first of the god's hall, or foremost of the divine booth, stressing his authority in sacred spaces like the embalming tent or the tomb.
What's also really interesting is how it was built. It wasn't fixed in place, was it? It looks like it could be moved.
That's a key observation. It sits on this sledge-like base, a palanquin, complete with holes for carrying poles. This confirms it wasn't just placed in the tomb, it traveled. It was part of the funerary procession, carried along before taking its final position, facing west, guarding the way.
And this whole idea of guarding, protecting the tomb, this leads us straight into that whole modern myth about the curse of the pharaohs, doesn't it?
It does, remarkably. Carter found a small, unfired clay brick right in front of this shrine, a magic brick. And it had an inscription, a protective spell, basically saying, "It is I who hindered the sand from choking the secret chamber. I am for the protection of the deceased."
A standard, albeit powerful protective utterance for the time.
Exactly. But when this got out, translated and, let's be honest, wildly sensationalized by the press, it became the seed for this global phenomenon of the pharaoh's curse. Quite the transformation.
Wow. So Anubis was clearly a serious protector. But his job description, his standing in the divine hierarchy, It changed over time, didn't it? He starts off as this major figure, but then Osiris kind of steps into the limelight.
Yeah.
How did that affect Anubis? Was it a demotion?
That's a really important point. In the very earliest periods, the Old Kingdom, we see this in the pyramid text Anubis, was arguably the top dog, the chief god of the dead. He's called the one who presides over the Westerners, meaning the dead.
Okay, so he was number one initially.
Yes. But then, especially by the Middle Kingdom, the Osiris myth becomes incredibly dominant. Osiris becomes the great symbol of resurrection, the ruler of the underworld. So Anubis's role shifts. He doesn't disappear, not at all, but he becomes more specialized. He solidifies his position as the god of mummification and, crucially, the psychopomp.
The psychopomp, the guide of souls.
Precisely. The one who leads the souls through the transition.
So it's important to get the division of labor right here. They aren't rivals exactly. They handle different stages.
Exactly right. Anubis is about the process of transition. He's the master embalmer, making sure the body is prepared. And critically, he's the one who leads the deceased soul into the Hall of Two Truths for the judgment, the weighing of the heart against the feather of mat truth and order.
So Anubis manages the process, oversees the test.
Yes, and Osiris is the ultimate destination, the judge, the king of the afterlife realm. If your heart was lighter than the feather, you were declared true of voice. Anubis would then sort of hand you over, prepare you to meet Osiris. But if your heart failed, if it was heavy with wrongdoing,
Then Anubis would lead you to Emmet, the devourer. Game over.
grim, but orderly. That's the key. Which brings us to another point, this Western idea that sometimes pops up, conflating Anubis with, dark, evil figures like Satan.
Right, because he's black, he's associated with death.
But that's a complete misreading based on the Egyptian sources. Anubis was all about order, duty, protection of the process, and guiding the deceased safely. The real agent of chaos and malice in their mythology was Set.
Set, the one who murdered his brother Osiris.
Exactly. Set represented disorder, violence, the disruption of Maat. Anubis stood against that. In fact, there's this amazing, quite graphic myth.
Oh, do tell.
Well, one story goes that Set tried to get near Osiris's body, maybe to desecrate it further, disguised as a leopard. But Anubis, the ever-vigilant guardian, caught him. And supposedly, he branded Set with a hot iron poker, which is one myth explaining how the leopard got its spots. And then, get this, he filleted Set and wore the leopard skin as a warning. Priests of Anubis often wore leopard skins.
Wow, okay, so Anubis wearing a leopard skin isn't just fashion, it's a symbol of triumph over chaos. A very dedicated guardian indeed.
Absolutely. But this concept he embodies, guidance, it's actually much bigger in Egyptian thought than just this one jackal god.
Right, it's a core principle.
It is. The ancient Egyptian word for a guide, or guidance, was SSM, Nobi, or SSM. And what's fascinating is how deeply this concept was tied to Maat.
Maat, truth, justice, cosmic order, balance.
All of that. Basically, to have SSM, proper guidance, meant living your life according to Maat. It wasn't just about the afterlife, it started on Earth. Moral navigation was essential.
So living right was, in a way, preparing for the ultimate guided journey after death.
That's a great way to put it. And they didn't just hope for the best, they created essentially guidebooks for the soul.
Literary sat-navs for the afterlife.
Pretty much. Look at the pyramid texts, the oldest major religious writings we have. They're full of spells and utterances meant to guide the dead king's soul, ensuring his resurrection and ascent. A royal guidebook.
Then later in the Middle Kingdom, you get the coffin texts.
Right, and these become even more explicit. They include actual netherworld guides, like the famous Book of Two Ways.
And you mean literal guides, with maps.
Yes, often painted right inside the coffin. Maps showing routes through the Duat, the underworld, pointing out dangers, fiery lakes, demons, and the safe paths to take. It's incredibly practical.
And this leads into the Book of the Dead in the New Kingdom, which is maybe the most famous collection.
Absolutely. And there, the need for guidance is stated outright. You find prayers, like in chapter 127, explicitly asking, "Give good guidance to the bee, the soul of the excellent transfigured one." It's a direct request for SSM.
And it wasn't just Anubis offering this guidance visually or textually?
No, he was the primary psychopomp, but not the only one. Maat herself, the goddess of truth, is often shown leading the deceased into the judgment hall.
Makes sense. She embodies the standard they're being judged against.
Exactly. And even parts of gods could act as guides. The Eye of Horus, the Wedget Eye, was seen as a guide, ensuring safe passage, even helping the deceased to breathe in the afterlife. Even the hieroglyph for guiding, SSMT, could sometimes include the image of a snake referring to the uraeus, the protective cobra on the pharaoh's brow. Guidance came in many forms.
Okay, now things get even more complex when we hit the Greco-Roman period. Cultures start mixing, right? What happens to the idea of guidance then, down in places like El Salamuni?
Ah, El Salamuni, yes. Fascinating tombs there. You see a blend. You still have traditional Egyptian guides like Anubis appearing, leading souls towards judgment. But then this other figure emerges, a local deity named Heriodes.
Heriodes, never heard of him.
He was likely a deified local human, kind of merged or assimilated with Greek gods like Hermes, who was also a psychopomp, of course, and Apollo. And what's really interesting is his specific role in the tomb depictions. Heriodes is almost always shown leading the deceased during the funerary procession itself.
So not in the final judgment scene, but in the journey to the tomb, or just before.
Exactly. It's like Anubis handles the cosmic ultimate judgment navigation, while Heriodes is the local specialist, maybe assisting the soul in achieving its divine potential before it gets to the main event with Osiris, a spiritual coach for the transition.
Like a local guide handing you over to the main tour operator.
That's not a bad analogy, actually. He ensures the soul is properly prepared and glorified for that final audience.
And there was something else strange found in those El Salamuni tombs. These black silhouettes.
Yes, this is really puzzling, particularly in one tomb, C3. You see scenes where gods like Anubis or Hathor are leading the main deceased person, but they're also leading these anonymous, completely black silhouette figures towards the judgment.
Just blank shapes. Who or what were they supposed to be?
Well, that's the mystery. The context suggests they could be ambiguous. In some scenes, they might represent other blessed dead joining the procession successfully, kind of like background extras who also made it.
Okay, that seems positive.
But in other contexts, similar silhouettes seem to represent defeated enemies or tortured souls. Some scholars think they might even be acting as sort of cosmic counterweights. Their suffering somehow helping to balance the scales in favor of the main tomb owner.
Wow, so the same image could be a fellow blessed soul or a tormented victim being used? That's complex.
It shows how localized and nuanced these beliefs could become. The core idea of needing guidance remained, but the specifics could get very intricate.
Okay, so let's pull this all together.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking back to that sleek black jackal in Tutankhamun's treasury, what's the big takeaway?
The big takeaway is that divine guidance, SSM, in ancient Egypt, wasn't just some vague hope or abstract idea. It was a core fundamental necessity, a codified religious and social contract. Your eternal fate depended on successfully navigating the afterlife, and that required detailed instructions and capable guides. It was structured through everything from amulets and spells to textual maps and divine figures like Anubis.
The journey through the Duat wasn't a gentle stroll. It was perilous, and you needed expert help. Anubis was the original expert, the ultimate navigator.
And critically, remember that link between SSM and Maat. Guidance wasn't just for the dead, it was for the living, too. Living, according to Maat, following moral guidance on Earth. That was seen as essential training, really, for the ultimate test. The ultimate need for divine guidance after death when facing the terrifying unknown.
So Anubis stands there, right at that doorway between life and eternity, embodying that need for order, protection, and expert direction. It makes you think, given how central this idea of detailed, necessary guidance was for the Egyptians navigating the unknown, does the way the concept of divine guidance or needing a clear path persist today in so many spiritual or even secular ethical frameworks? Does it reflect some deep, maybe continuous human need, a need to believe we aren't just adrift, but that there is or should be some kind of map, some guide, leading us towards a meaningful destination? Something to ponder, perhaps, next time you feel like you need directions.